In this segment, we'll look at that layers window that's in the bottom right corner of the Photoshop screen. And let's start by opening that picture of my granddaughter Lena again. So we see it in the center of the screen. And in the layers window at the bottom right here, we see that we have a single layer called background. And this is what we call a flat image. And it's flat because there's just a single layer, right? There's not a whole stack of them. How do we ever get another layer here? Well, there's many ways to do it, as there is anything in Photoshop. But one way I can do it is I can go up to the menu, pick on the layer menu, take the new layer option, and we'll let the layer have the default name layer 1. I'll click OK. So now if we look over at the layer stack on the right, we see we have two layers, the background layer and layer 1. Now layer 1 is a pixel layer, but there are no pixels on it. How do we get pixels on it? Again, there's a bunch of ways to do it, but one of the ways is to use the tools we have on the left here. I'm going to pick the paintbrush tool. I'm going to paint with the foreground color, which is now set to red. And let me just click and drag. I'll make the brush a little bigger. Let me click and drag over part of this image with this paintbrush with red paint and make just a red squiggle. Okay, now it looks like I've painted right on the image, but in fact it's on a separate layer. And I can demonstrate that by clicking on these little eyeballs just to the left of these layers in the layer window. If I turn off the eyeball on the background layer, then all I see are the pixels on layer 1. Those red brush strokes that I just put down. Where Photoshop has no pixels or colored squares to show, he shows this checkerboard pattern. And sometimes we say that these are transparent pixels on layer 1. But what we mean is there's just no colored square or pixel at a particular cell in the image canvas to display. So in that case, Photoshop is just showing us this checkerboard pattern to indicate to us that there are no pixels here to display. So I'll click the eyeball back on the background. Now I'm seeing both layers. If I turn off the visibility of layer 1, now I'm just seeing the pixels on the background layer. Right? Now, so there's this notion that we now have a stack of two layers and layer 1 is on top of the background layer. Let's make a third layer. Again, a pixel layer. And Photoshop just calls these layers, I call them pixel layers to differentiate them from adjustment layers that we'll talk about a little later. So let's make another pixel layer. We'll let it have the default name of layer 2. And let's change the color of the paint now. We don't want red paint anymore. Let's pick blue paint. And again, I'm going to take my paintbrush and I'm going to paint now with blue paint on layer 2. Okay, so again, I'm just going to take my mouse, click and drag, and you can see I'm making some blue pixels here on layer 2. Now, because layer 2 is on top of layer 1, where pixels overlap on layers 1 and 2, I'm seeing the pixels on layer 2 because it's on top, just as if these were scraps of paper. And when I put a piece of paper on top, it hides what's underneath it. Same idea with layers, with pixel layers. I can change the order of these pixel layers. If I take layer 2 and click and drag it under layer 1 and drop it there, now layer 1 is on top, and the red pixels are showing where they overlap the blue pixels. Why? Because layer 1 is now on top. If I turn off the visibility of layer 2, all I see are the red pixels. If I turn it back on and turn off the visibility of layer 1, now all I'm seeing are the blue pixels, layer 2. So that's the notion of pixel layers, the notion of layer order. These things seem very simple, but they're really important. I mean, this is the key to learning pixel layers in Photoshop. So make sure this makes sense to you. If it didn't make sense, go back and watch it again, because you really need to understand this or the rest of the workshop won't make any sense to you.